Welcome back to another episode of Daily Neville. I am your host, Josiah Brandt, and Daily Neville is all about breaking down the teachings of Neville Goddard, making them easy to understand, easy to digest, easy to apply in 20 minutes or less. I designed Daily Neville to fit seamlessly into your daily diet of high-vibe consciousness nutrition. These ideas are designed to inspire and uplift you. So if you see value in these videos, go ahead and subscribe to this channel so that you get the next episode tomorrow. Today, we're continuing with Neville's 1942 book, Freedom for All, a practical application of the Bible. And this episode is all about chapter 5, which is titled The Sabbath. This episode is all about a mystical illumination of this idea known as the Sabbath, an idea which has been misunderstood because man has made it a physical idea, when in truth it is meant to be a spiritual or metaphysical idea. And in this episode, we're going to dive into what Neville says about this idea of the Sabbath and learn how we can apply it to our own lives as creators. Let's go ahead and dive right in. The Sabbath. 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day there shall be to you a holy day, a Sabbath of rest to the Lord. These 6 days are not 24-hour periods of time. They symbolize the psychological moment a definite subjective state is fixed. These 6 days of work are subjective experiences, and consequently cannot be measured by sidereal time. For the real work of fixing a definite psychological state is done in consciousness. The time spent in consciously defining yourself as that which you desire to be is the measure of these 6 days. A change of consciousness is the work done in these 6 creative days. A psychological adjustment, which is measured not by sidereal time, but by an actual subjective accomplishment. Okay, so in case you're not familiar with this term sidereal is a time scale related to the Earth's rate of rotation, meaning a very literal interpretation of the idea of time is sidereal time, literally how long it takes the Earth to spin on its axis and create what we experience as one day. So what Neville is saying here is these 6 days are not physical 3D days or days measured by the Earth's rate of rotation. Rather, this is a psychological idea, and he's just making that very, very clear. Just as a life, in retrospect, is measured not by years, but by the content of those years, so too is this psychological interval measured, not by the time spent in making the adjustment, but by the accomplishment of that interval. So this 6 days is not a physical period of time, rather it marks an accomplishment. This is a psychological interval. Neville continues, the true meaning of 6 days of work, creation, is revealed in the mystery of vow, which is the 6th letter of the Hebrew alphabet and the 3rd letter in the divine name Yod, He, Vav, He. As previously explained in the mystery of the name of Jehovah, vow means to nail or to join. The Creator is joined or nailed to his creation through feeling. And the time that it takes you to fix a definite feeling is the true measure of these 6 days of creation. Mentally separating yourself from the objective world, meaning the world that you can measure with your senses or interact with your senses or observe using your physical 5 senses, and attaching yourself through the secret of feeling to the subjective state, or the second son, the Jacob, the supplanter, the ideal, the imaginary picture, is the function of the 6th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, vow, or the 6 days of work. There is always an interval between the fixed impression, or subjective state, and the outward expression of that state. This interval is called the Sabbath. Okay, so what he is saying is you're going to fix a psychological state, and that's the 6 days. Not that it actually takes 6 physical human days or 6 physical earthly days. That's not the point. It's that you're doing an accomplishment, you're fixing a feeling in those 6 days. And then the 7th is the Sabbath. The Sabbath, Neville writes, is the mental rest which follows the fixed psychological state. It is the result of your 6 days of work. It is the harvest after the period of sowing. The Sabbath was made for man. This mental rest, which follows a successful conscious impregnation, is the period of mental pregnancy, a period which is made for the purpose of incubating the manifestation. It was made for the manifestation. The manifestation was not made for it. Automatically, you keep the Sabbath a day of rest, a period of mental rest, if you succeed in accomplishing your 6 days of work. There can be no Sabbath, there can be no 7th day, no mental period of rest until the 6 days are over, until the psychological adjustment is accomplished and the mental impression is fully made. Man is warned that if he fails to keep the Sabbath, if he fails to enter into the rest of God, he will also fail to receive the promise. He will fail to realize his desires. The reason for this is simple and obvious. There can be no mental rest until a conscious impression is made. If a man fails to fully impress upon himself the fact that he now has that which he heretofore desired to possess, he will continue to desire it, and therefore he will not be mentally at rest or satisfied. Okay, so that 6 days is the process of moving from desiring to having psychologically. And you cannot enter a period of rest until you know that you have what you desire, a period of satisfaction. Once you have finished eating a very delicious meal, you feel satisfied. You don't have that desire to continue eating. That's the Sabbath of a meal. And the 6 days is eating the meal. If, on the other hand, Neville writes, he succeeds in making the conscious adjustment so that upon emerging from the period of silence or his subjective 6 days of work, he knows by his feeling that he has the thing desired, then he automatically enters the Sabbath or the period of mental rest. Pregnancy follows impregnation. Pregnancy is the state of being pregnant. Impregnation is what causes being pregnant, and pregnancy is the state, meaning that pregnancy is that period of incubation. Man does not continue desiring that which he has already acquired. The Sabbath can be kept as a day of rest only after man becomes conscious, succeeds in becoming conscious of being that which before entering into the silence he desired to be. Entering into the silence. It's very hard to move from what you see or observe that you have right now into what you desire to have and to give it to yourself psychologically when you're not in the silence, when you're surrounded by the noise of your senses. And this is why this is a meditative, internal, going within, going into the closet and closing the doors against the senses practice. The Sabbath is the result of 6 days of work. The man who knows the true meaning of these 6 days realizes that the observance of one day of the week as a day of physical quietness has nothing to do with keeping the Sabbath. The peace and the quiet of the Sabbath can be experienced only when man has succeeded in becoming conscious of being that which he desires to be. If he fails to make this conscious impression, he has missed the mark. He has sinned. For to sin is to miss the mark, to fail to achieve one's objective, a state in which there is no peace of mind. If I had not come and spoken unto them, they had not had sin. If a man had not been presented with an ideal state toward which to aim, a state to be desired and acquired, he would have been satisfied with his lot in life and would have never known sin. Now that man knows that his capacities are infinite. He knows that by working 6 days and by making a psychological adjustment, he can realize his desires. And now that this is the case, he will not be satisfied until he achieves his every objective. He will, with the true knowledge of these 6 work days, define his objective and set about becoming conscious of being it. When this conscious impression is made, it is automatically followed by a period of rest, a period which the mystic calls the Sabbath, an interval in which the conscious impression will be gestated until physically expressed. The Word will be made flesh, but that is not the end. This Sabbath or rest, which will be broken by the embodiment of the idea, will sooner or later give way to another 6 days of work, as man defines another objective and begins anew the act of defining himself as that which he desires to be. A powerful mystical revelation of the secret of the Sabbath, and we're not done yet. In the next episode, we're going to conclude this chapter on the Sabbath and go even deeper into this mystical idea of the truth that sets us free. Until next time, imagine wisely, my friends, and I will see you all again very, very soon.